This is the beginning of the Things You Need to Know About.com management series. Let's get started with what is it? Management takes place within an organization or structure. Note that at the very top of the structure is management, under which everything falls. Also note that leadership is the foundation of the structure. The upward pointing arrows indicate that it permeates throughout the organization. Now, within the organization or structure, the manager allocates resources: human, financial, physical, and informational, using the functions of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. An example of planning might be creating a budget, which would then become a major control mechanism. Organizing could be the structuring of human resources into an organization chart. Leading might be influencing others to achieve organizational goals created in the planning function. And an example of controlling would be comparing budget with actual figures and taking corrective action if necessary. Please note how the interlocking circles are drawn around each function, showing the interrelationships and the dependencies upon each other. Now, performing these functions most efficiently and effectively creates a competitive advantage, which leads to achieving organizational goals. So in summary, management takes place within an organization or structure and is positioned at the top under which everything falls, whereas leadership is the foundation upon which an organization is built. Then, within the organization or structure, managers allocate resources: human, financial, physical, and informational, using the functions of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling to most efficiently and effectively achieve organizational goals.
Improving your understanding of the functions of management can help you effectively manage a company or your team. It can help you understand, at the minimum, the purpose of some departments such as quality control, recruitment, or training. As a frontline leader, it can help you appreciate the activities and tasks you need to do. Planning is charting the future. It is deciding in advance what to do, when to do it, and how it's gonna be done. It can be as big as deciding the mission, vision, and objectives of a company, or a plan to improve certain business metric of your team. It is identifying what you want, when you should achieve it, and how it will be achieved. Next, organizing is called the backbone of management. Organizing is grouping of activities together. Think of your departments. All employees that hire additional employees are grouped under the recruitment department, or those who advertise and sell the product serve under marketing and sales, and those who actually make the product or services work under productions or operations. Organizing is also creating the organizational structure or hierarchy of the business. It's delegation of authority and creation of responsibilities and tasks. Organizing also ensures that whatever necessary items the business or department needs are met, such as the need for materials like machineries or computers, capital, and personnel. Directing, on the other hand, makes the plans concrete. It involves supervision, motivation, leadership, and guidance of employees. All of these are done to ensure that organizational goals are met. Finally, controlling is measuring performance on a set of standards and correcting any deviation. Let's say your actual Net Promoter Score or client satisfaction is lower than the target. Control would mean creating the necessary steps to correct and achieve the target. Overall, a frontline leader would normally do a smaller version of each function. On a bigger level, each function can be represented by different departments or roles. Planning is normally done by middle managers and up, such as department managers or district heads. Organizing is done by HR or senior managers, while staffing is handled by training, recruitment, and HR. Directing is handled by frontline leaders or operations, and control is handled by quality control. These are just some general activities of each function, and each industry or business will have more or less depending on their needs and wants. So these are the functions of management. Click the thumbs up button if you like this video.
There are many roles that a manager has within an organization. Performing these roles is the basis of a manager's job. To be effective at these roles, a manager must be a complete business person by understanding the strategic, tactical, and operational responsibilities that he or she holds. While not always explicitly stated in a manager's job description, at any given moment, a manager might have to be a coach, a strategic planner, a liaison, a cheerleader, a conflict manager, a realist, a problem solver, an organizer, an optimist, a trainer, and a decision maker. These roles can change from day to day, but one thing is for sure. A manager must understand all of their roles and how to perform them effectively. This means that a manager must have a global understanding of all business functions, organizational goals, his or her level of accountability, and the appropriate way to serve both internal and external clients of the organization. Henry Mintzberg spent much of his career researching the managerial roles and behaviors of several chief executive officers, or CEOs, Mintzberg discovered that managers spent most of their time engaging in 10 specific roles. He was able to then classify these roles into 3 categories, including interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles. To better understand these roles, let's look at how they are applied by Bernard the boss as he goes through his daily routine as a manager at a local grocery store. The first category of roles described by Mintzberg are called interpersonal roles. These roles involve the behaviors associated with human interaction. In other words, interpersonal roles are those roles which allow a manager to interact with his or her employees for the purpose of achieving organizational goals. There are 3 roles listed under the interpersonal roles, which include figurehead, leader, and liaison. Let's look at how these 3 roles are played out by Bernard. When Bernard arrives at the store in the morning, he holds a daily meeting for all employees who are working that day. He spends time talking about daily specials, sales goals, and motivates his employees for the day by holding a friendly contest between the workers to try to sell as many of the sale items as possible during their shift. He informs his employees that the highest seller will win a $50 gift certificate for the store. As a figurehead, Bernard the boss has certain social, ceremonial, and legal responsibilities that his employees expect for him to fulfill. Bernard is seen as a source of inspiration and authority to his employees. As Bernard goes about his day, he must make sure that he's monitoring the performance of his employees and how well they are doing in their sales. He checks with his employees periodically to make sure that they understand the products that are on sale and what key features to point out, as well as to remind them of their goal of winning the contest. Bernard the boss's role as a leader requires him to direct and manage the performance of his employees. He will spend time communicating performance goals, training and mentoring employees, supporting employee efforts, supplying resources, evaluating employee performance, and motivating employees towards a higher level of productivity. Bernard does not leave all the selling up to his employees because he likes to maintain contact with his customers to better understand their needs and how he can accommodate them. He stops and chats with several customers throughout the day to get feedback on sale items and to learn about the products that his customers would like to see the store put on sale in the future. Acting as a liaison is Bernard the boss's final interpersonal role. As a liaison, Bernard communicates with internal and external members of the organization. This networking activity is a critical step in reaching organizational goals, especially those concerned with customers. The second category of managerial roles are informational roles. The informational roles include those roles in which a manager must generate and share knowledge to successfully achieve organizational goals. There are 3 roles listed under the informational roles, which include monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. After Bernard is comfortable with his employees' understanding of sales products and their goals, he heads back to his office to do some research for what he will put on sale next week. Bernard spends time reflecting on the feedback his employees gave, the information his customers shared with him that day, and he also looks at what his competitors are putting on sale at this time. The monitor role that Bernard the boss must fill involves the task of researching, locating, and choosing useful information. As a monitor, Bernard has to stay abreast to current industry standards and changes occurring in both the internal and external business environments. This also includes monitoring the performance of employees and their level of productivity. Bernard combines all of the information into a proposal for next week's sale advertisement and forwards the information to upper management for approval. He also spends some time previewing this information with his employees so that they can begin to familiarize themselves with the items. As a disseminator, Bernard must take the information he gathered as a monitor and forward it on to the appropriate individuals. Now that Bernard has approval from upper management, He creates the advertisement for next week's sale items and begins to distribute it to his customers. Acting as a spokesperson on behalf of the organization is Bernard's final informational role. As a spokesperson, Bernard communicates information about the organization to outside parties. The third category of managerial roles, according to Mintzberg, is called decisional roles. Decisional roles include those roles such as the entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator. All of these roles involve the process of using information to make decisions. Bernard checks in with his employees midday and notices that some of the sale items have not done as well as anticipated. After speaking with his employees, he learns that the items that have not been selling are sitting next to the generic brand on the shelves. These generic brands are still less expensive than the sale items and causing customers to choose the less expensive version. Bernard makes the decision to move these items to a special display area where they can sit by themselves and hopefully attract more buyers. As an entrepreneur, Bernard the boss is focused on process improvement. He looks for ways to improve productivity and efficiency within his organization and directs the change process from development to implementation. As Bernard is setting up the display, he notices that two of his employees are arguing over the contest, and he is not the only one. Customers have also noticed, and some are starting to even leave the store. Bernard quickly intervenes and helps to bring the employees to an agreement. Acting as a disturbance handler, Bernard serves as a conflict manager. He spends time taking corrective action during times of dispute to remove any barriers towards organizational success. After the display is set up, Bernard heads back to his office and sees that he has a voicemail. After checking the voicemail, he learns that one of his employees who works the night shift has called out sick. He needs to cover that shift and quickly begins to ask employees who are currently working if they would mind working a double shift. He finds a replacement and he is then able to go back to his daily responsibilities. Determining the best place for organizational resources to be distributed is what Bernard does in his role as a resource allocator. Taking the time to plan, dispense, and monitor resources is essential for Bernard to ensure that his employees continue to be productive. Bernard the boss ends his shift with a conference call with one of his distributors. He learns that the store will now be charged an additional $300 for each delivery. Bernard knows that he has to adhere to a set budget that was based on the old delivery fees. He spends time negotiating with the distributor and comes to a compromise that the additional fee will not be charged until next quarter when he can account for it in their budget. The negotiator role is the last of the decisional roles that Bernard must fill. As a negotiator, Bernard acts as a representative for the team, department, or organization during times of negotiation, whereby he looks out for the best interest of the party with whom he represents. Even though Mintzberg's research was conducted many years ago, his discoveries of the 10 managerial roles are still seen in business today. Managers of all levels perform the roles described by Mintzberg on a daily basis at organizations worldwide. Many managers assess their own behaviors against those described by Mintzberg to become more self-aware of how they can improve their managerial practices. Let's review. There are many roles that a manager has within an organization. Henry Mintzberg described 10 specific managerial roles most commonly seen within organizations. Mintzberg classified the roles into 3 categories: interpersonal roles, or those roles associated with human interaction; informational roles, or those roles associated with sharing information; and decisional roles, or those roles involved in decision-making. Interpersonal roles include the figurehead, leader, and liaison. Informational roles include the monitor, disseminator, and spokesperson. Decisional roles include the entrepreneur, disturbance handler, resource allocator, and negotiator.
Long before theorists started writing about employee satisfaction and good working conditions, management considered classical leadership, with its sole interest in high production and efficiency, to be the most important to an organization's success. Later, it was concern for worker satisfaction and good working conditions that formed the foundation for behavioral management theory. Behavioral management theory relies on the notion that managers will better understand the human aspect to workers and treat employees as important assets to achieve goals. Management taking a special interest in workers makes them feel like part of a special group. As time went on, thinking shifted and management started looking at employee satisfaction and working conditions as a way to increase productivity. Theorists like Elton Mayo and others studied employee productivity under different conditions to determine a connection. Mayo's Hawthorne experiment provides a good example of this. In the Hawthorne experiment, a group of telephone line workers were separated and observed working in a private room. During their workday, the group members were given special privileges like freedom to leave their workstations, changes in pay rates, and even company-sponsored lunch. What they discovered was the control group produced more than the other employees. The rationale for this increased production was that the group felt that management was interested in their well-being. This began the human relations movement for management. If all management had to do was spend time, express interest in workers' personal well-being, and reward them for a job well done, workers would feel motivation to work harder. In fact, behavior towards work would be positive. Let's see how behavioral management theory works in a modern-day telephone line company. Total telephone line company workers perform the monotonous job of weaving telephone lines together. Managers know the work is boring and often results in poor productivity and absenteeism. Percy oversees the workers as they weave away, making sure each set of wires is perfect. Workers like Lucy and Marcy chit-chat during most of their shift, getting very little done. Daphne daydreams about working as a fashion designer and uses much of her workday sketching haute couture on lunch napkins. Percy used to yell at the ladies and banish them to silence. Daphne even had her pencils taken away from her on several occasions. But productivity did not increase. In fact, it decreased. Percy knew she had to try something new. She had a tough challenge. She is responsible for high productivity. After all, Total Telephone Wire is profit-motivated. Percy researched ways to improve productivity and came across a book on behavioral management theory. She found that a greater concern for employee needs leads to higher satisfaction levels and better overall performance, which leads to behavioral changes in their response to work. Percy changed the way she managed the ladies. She asked questions about their work environment. She even took suggestions about how they can perform their job more efficiently. What Percy discovered is that the more she connected with the ladies, the more motivated they were to perform and do a good job. This changed their behavior towards Percy's drilling orders, and it increased their productivity. Behavior is defined as the way a person conducts themselves towards others. When workers are treated as humans rather than machines, they respond to their particular work situation in a positive way by increasing individual productivity. Percy read the work of theorists who described the things that inspired people to go to work. What she learned was astonishing. While salary is important, it is not the only important consideration. Workers had more intrinsic motives for working, like self-fulfillment, autonomy and empowerment, social status, and personal relationships with coworkers. Motivation is the internal process that directs enduring behavior. For Percy, this means workers are often inspired from within, not always as a result of external factors to work. Motivation comes from many factors: position in the company, pay and stability, benefits, incentives and rewards, interesting work assignments, and common beliefs and values. Percy started an incentive program. Telephone line workers would receive extra money for high production. She also offered benefits like tuition reimbursement so Daphne could attend fashion school. These factors, in combination with things like positive feedback and appraisals, good communication, good working conditions, involvement with decision-making, common goal setting, group processes, and good leader-worker relations led to a more productive and satisfied set of workers because behavioral management theory relies so heavily on behavioral and motivational factors. In summary, behavioral management theory shifted management's belief that workers were like machines and productivity was the result of management's drive for profits alone. Theorists like Elton Mayo and others began studying the motives and behaviors of employees to find out what motivates employees to work harder. Observing a control group as they worked and manipulating variables like break times revealed that when workers feel a sense of autonomy over their work, their productivity increases. This shocking revelation instigated the need to rethink the leader-worker relationship. This gave way to the notion that workers are intrinsically motivated to work. When work is self-fulfilling and brings a high degree of satisfaction, productivity is high. Managers shifted focus from the mere production and began building strong relationships with workers. To do this, managers provided employees with positive feedback and appraisals, good working conditions, involvement in decision-making, and good communication. Ultimately, managers who show concern for workers have high productivity because workers experience increased satisfaction.
Created using Powtoon.
Hi! Lại đó.